Good morning, Instagram. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Facebook. How's everyone doing? I'm just going to wait for you guys to come on in. I have a good topic today. Um, Share this video so your friends can tune in, your family. If you have relatives who are dealing with immigration and need assistance, share this video so they can tune in. Hi, Chima from Texas. Thanks for tuning in. If this is your first time joining, definitely comment in the box. And apologies if you see me going left and right. I have different screens that I'm going live on. So I'm just talking to both screens. Good morning, Minute Maid. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Comment in there and let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm tuning in live from Atlanta. My name is Aisha Chidole. I'm an immigration lawyer. I present clients all over the United States with family immigration. We have offices in Atlanta and Orlando, Florida, but your location is not a problem. We represent clients in all 50 states, so feel free to reach out to us. Our phone number is 407-995-6567. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404 333-8751. I'm just going to put this into the comment on Instagram. On Facebook, you can see this scrolling through the ticker. And you can see the same on YouTube. So let me just pin this while some of you guys are tuning in. Or WhatsApp. 404. Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone doing today? Back to school is upon us. I'm sure you guys, if you guys are, I don't know if you guys are as excited as me for back to school because, summer sort of, is tough on the schedule with work and school, summer camp and logistics with kids. Good morning, Billy. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. So today I want to talk about good morning, legal from Houston. Coach says, good morning, my favorite immigration lawyer. Good morning, thank you. And then Shaq says, hey, from Jamaica, it's my first time. Hey, good morning. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, so today I want to talk about how to adjust your status or what your options are to adjust your status if you entered into the country EWI. So I guess the first thing is what is EWI and what is adjustment of status? So EWI means entry without inspection. So EWI, we just call it EWI. Entry without inspection could mean many different things. You crossed the border, you came by boat, you entered without anyone basically putting a stamp of record that you entered into the United States. Okay? And an adjustment of status means when you convert whatever status you are currently in the United States into a green card holder, okay, while you are in the United States. So this is different for those of you who are, consular processing because you're outside of the US or whatever it is. Adjustment of status is specifically for people who are in the United States and want to get their green card without leaving the country. So typically, in order for you to adjust your status in the United States, whether it's by marriage or by whatever, you have to prove entry. So you have to prove that you actually entered with inspection. If you can't prove that you entered with inspection, you cannot adjust your status. I'm going to go over some exceptions in a minute. Typically, you cannot adjust your status. What you have to do is you have to file a 601A hardship waiver. You have to file a hardship waiver, and that hardship waiver has to be approved, right? If that hardship waiver is approved, then you can go back to your home country and then, finish up your interview process and then come back. In order for you to file a 601A, you need qualifying relatives, okay? Your qualifying relatives would be a parent that's a US citizen or a green card holder, or a spouse that's a US citizen or green card holder. You notice here that I did not say children. Children are not considered for hardship waivers as a qualifying relative. I mean, of course, you could, if let's say you're doing it based on marriage, and you came into the country without inspection and your spouse, is a US citizen and, you have a child, I mean, you can make an argument of hardship to your spouse as it relates to your child. But the person's hardship that they're focusing on is that of your spouse. Okay? So for those of you who cross the border and, you're trying to just do like a normal marriage based case, you would not be allowed to do an adjustment. You'll have to leave. Now, there's some exceptions, like I mentioned. An example of an exception would be a VAWA application, if you qualify for VAWA. And for those of you, again, who don't know, or this is your first time, VAWA is when you're married to somebody who's abusive or who's extremely cruel to you. Again, abuse is not necessarily only physical. It can be mental, it can be emotional, it can be, intimacy, it can be financial, verbal. But if you're in a relationship where your spouse is abusive, or your child is abusive, or your parent is abusive, or extremely cruel, you have a possibility of adjusting your status, without leaving the country, without the 601A waiver, to go outside the country. You can do it simultaneously. Obviously, there are a few requirements, for that, where, it's not just any spouse. The spouse has to be a US citizen or a green card holder, and it's not just any child. Your child has to be 21 and a US citizen for you to say your child has been extremely cruel to you. And the same applies to parents. The child has to apply. The parents can be US citizens or green card holder, well, the child has to apply before that child turns 21. I mean, they will make some exceptions, between 21 to before they turn 25, if you can show that the reason why you didn't submit it was based on the abusive or extreme cruel behavior from your parent. But typically when you're in that age range, you can't do an adjustment of status just yet, because then you fall into waiting for visas to be available based on your priority date to do that. So that's how that kind of works. So yeah, so that typically would be the way. Another way that you can potentially adjust your status if you came in the EWI is that through a T visa. With a T visa, you have to show some sort of human trafficking, i.e., let's say, and human trafficking is not like necessarily what you see in the movies where, there's this movie I just watched recently and like human trafficking. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's not like that. It's like, okay, using an example, let's say, you had somebody who was like, okay, pay me $15,000, I'm going to bring you and whoever else, I'm going to bring all of you guys to America, and you guys cross the border. And then when you get to the border, the person is like, oh, you think you finished paying me? That the $15,000 is not enough. That's just like a deposit. You need to pay me another $10,000. I'm just using this as an example. And basically, they force labor on you to pay them. So almost like you're an indentured servant, like you're paying the person in a way where you don't feel safe to leave, or that you're allowed to stop working. And this could apply in many regards. Like, for instance, there are a lot of people, let me use different example, of people who, and for T visas, it applies to you whether you enter with inspection or whether, you come without inspection. Another good example of something like that would be, I'm sure you guys see Afro, I saw someone complimenting my hair, and stuff like that. And, sometimes you go to these braiding salons where there are a lot of immigrants that are working there, and a lot of them, are working under this horrendous conditions, and, maybe they have debt to pay, or they're not allowed to not work there, or they work several hours and are not paid for the hours that they're working, and they are dealing with those threats of, if you don't work for me, I'm going to report you to immigration, or we're going to send you back home. So those are categories where it's not necessarily related to marriage, but with the T visa, you can also adjust your status and stuff like that. And then of course there's a U visa. U visas take a long time, but it's also an option for EWI, and that's typically when um, you know, you can show that you've experienced some crime of violence. With that one, typically, you need a police certification, and you have to be willing to work with the police to make sure that that is investigated. So those are some of your options, basically, as far as adjustment of status. If you enter the country without inspection. All right, let me take some questions. Kashine says, I need to know, I have a 2-year green card and I petitioned for my daughter, but her living condition is not the best now. I want to expedite, but also I have traveled twice since I got my card. Can I travel again during the year? So when you have a 2-year green card, you have the same rights as any other green card holder. The only difference is that your green card is expires in 2 years, and you have to file for removal of condition, as opposed to a green card holder who has to just apply for a renewal. So there is no limit to how often you can travel. So, I'm sorry that your daughter is going through that, but you can certainly go and visit your child if you want to visit your child, because you have a green card that allows you to do that. Expedite, it all depends on what phase your child is in. But typically, you can try, as I say, try, because, nothing is guaranteed, but you can always try on a humanitarian ground, depending on whatever is going on with your child. And if it's something that's life threatening or life and death, or things related to, molestation, sexual harassment, and things like that as it relates to children. Okay. Chandel says, good morning, beautiful. Love your braids. Thank you. Sandra says, good morning. How are you? My favorite lawyer. You're looking so lovely. Thank you, guys. Hi, Nikia. Good morning. Good morning, Novelette. Good morning, Yolanda. Yolanda says, if a permanent resident husband petitions for me, is my 19-year-old son added, or do I have to file for him when I get my green card? So, Yolanda, the answer to the question is that it depends on how old your son was when you got married. If your son was under 18 when you got married, then your husband can petition for your child. But if your son was over that age, your husband is not eligible to petition for your child. Only you can petition for your child. Now, because your husband is a green card holder, let's assume for just this scenario, your child was under 18 when you guys got married. As an LPR, a legal permanent resident, when your husband files the I-130, you and your child will be automatically included in the I-130. This is different for U.S. citizens. When a U.S. citizen, is filing, they have to file separate applications for each immediate relative. It's different with an LPR, right? So they file the I-130. However, once that is approved, then separate visa applications will need to be filed for you and your son. Again, this is all if you were married to your spouse before your son turned 18. Let me take some questions on Instagram. Hi, Derek from Baltimore. Yoli says back to school. We have an entire month of summer break here in New York. Oh yeah, no, it is back to school in Georgia, and I think Florida as well. Like, they get out of school end of May, so everybody's like going back to school like in literally a week or 2 weeks. So it's definitely school season. Let's see what else we have here. Bola Akeli says, your lipstick is fabulous. I must say, hey, Bola, how are you? Thanks for tuning in, and thank you so much. Let me see. Sweet Mon says, I love your hair. Thank you. I guess these braids are very popular. If you guys know me personally, you know how much I hate braids. But my husband convinced me. He said it looked really nice. That's why I'm keeping it. Akasa says, good morning. How long does it take for a replacement of an EAD? Unfortunately, a replacement of an EAD is going to take a long time, at least five to the same time it will take to put in an application. Everything EAD related is delayed. So you're looking at anywhere from like 5 to 9 months. Knock on wood, you'll be in the 5 month range, 6 month range, but that's sort of like the window. Okay. Good morning, Bad Chubs. Hey, Brazen Lawyer, how are you? I feel like I haven't seen you on Instagram in a long time. But then again, I really haven't been on Instagram in a while. Okay, Island Born says, hi, Roger. I have an 8-year-old in Jamaica. I would like her to visit until she's finished up school in Jamaica. Is that possible for her to visit? I mean, absolutely. She can visit the United States. She just has to apply for a visitor's visa. If she already has one, then great. If she doesn't, she has to apply for a V1, V2. Okay. So Danny says, if your dad filed for you and you entered the country when you were 18 years old, how long do you have to wait to apply for citizenship? So Danny, are you saying that you're a green card holder? So if you're a green card holder, you're going to count 5 years. 5 years from the time you got your green card is when you become eligible. However, you can apply 90 days before the 5-year mark. So technically, at 4 year, 9 months, you can put in your application. Obviously, there are other requirements that you have to make sure that you meet, i.e., your travel, that you've been in the country at least 2.5 years out of that 5 years. We want to see your good moral character, like so criminal records, child support, and things like that. If you have children, making sure that you're paying your taxes and all of that stuff. Okay. Okay, let me take some on YouTube. Good morning, Alicia. New Rico says, how long does a divorce take? I'm not a divorce lawyer, so I can't give you the answer. You should probably ask your divorce lawyer. They'll be able to tell you every state is different. Divorce also varies depending on, if it's a contested divorce or not. I mean, there are divorces that can take 2 years, 10 years. There are also divorces that can take 60 days. So it just depends on assets, children, the lawyer, your spouse. Are you guys fighting about something? So there's no one answer, fits all. Okay. Okay. So let me see. Okay. So Sid says, can you get a 10-year green card being married for 18 months, or it has to be 2 years? It has to be 2 years. So basically, when you apply for a green card based on marriage, at the time of approval, they count how long you've been married. If on the day you're being approved, you've been married for more than 24 months, you're getting a 10-year green card. If at the time of approval, you've been married for under 24 months, you're getting a 2-year green card. Obviously, this does not apply in VAWA cases, because obviously with a VAWA case, regardless of how long you were married before you filed VAWA, filed for divorce, you will get a 10-year green card, and some other types of cases as well. So Annie says, good morning. I filed an I-485 for an I-130 with a U.S. citizen, but filed VAWA. I got approved on January 2022. Initial filing date was 2018. Denied, but reopened based on abeyance. Where's the 485? Where's the 485 now? I don't know if I understand your question, but because you have so many dates and details, I would suggest scheduling a consultation so I can really understand, where you are, and we can try to assist you. Yolanda, if your son was 18 at the time of marriage, he's not eligible, from your husband. Only you can file for him. So, you can file for him. If you get your green card before he turns 21, that puts him in a quicker category. If you don't get your green card till after he's 21, then he's in a longer category, and just note that he can't get married. As a green card holder, you can file for a child that's married. They're not eligible. Okay. Okay. Oh, let me see. I have some questions here in the question box. Okay. So this person says, can a J1 adjust their status and become a green card holder without marriage? If yes, how long does it take? A J1 can adjust their status. Well, there are a few things here. If you have a J1 visa, you first of all, we have to determine if you're exempt from the 2-year residency in your home country or not, because you have to, if you're not exempt, you have to do 2 years in your home country, or you have to request a no objection waiver, and that has to be approved here, right? That's the first thing. So let's assume that you don't have the 2-year residency requirement. If you don't have the 2-year residency requirement, just by the fact or the mere fact that you're a J1 student or a J1 applicant, you cannot adjust your status and get a green card. Something has to entitle you to the green card. What can entitle you to the green card is marriage. Another thing that can entitle you to the green card is if you eventually go from there to an H-1B status, and adjust your status. But a J1 on its own cannot entitle you to a green card. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got here. After I get the EWI waiver, how long does it take for you to go back to your home? How long is one home for? So the answer is going to depend on the country you're from. So typically, if your waiver or your hardship waiver is approved, and this is the 601A we're referring to, you can schedule to go back home once you know when your interview is scheduled, right? So if you know that your interview is scheduled 4 weeks from now, you can choose to go back home. I don't know, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, do your medical at home, and stuff like that. And then, then that the local office is now who's going to determine how quickly they'll stamp your visa or that your visa will be stamped. And this is also a reason why it's really good to be honest about your immigration history. If you've ever lied about anything in your forms or whatever, because a 601 waiver is not the time to lie, because you don't want to, not be candid and then end up in, in your home country, and then you find out that you're not approved because, i.e., you lied, on something in your application, or said you were married, you're not married, or you lied about a criminal record or whatever it is, and then you're now stuck there. So you really have to be squeaky clean. You really have to be squeaky clean, or at least be very honest with your attorney so that they know if whatever it is that you're being clean about is something that could potentially land you in a situation where you're stuck there and you can't come back. But so for some people it could take weeks, for some people it could take like a couple months, 1-2 months or whatever. So it's different depending on, your local consulate. Okay. All right, let me see what else we have. How long does advanced parole take to be processed under VAWA? At the same time as a work permit. Usually it takes about 5 to 9 months. I think I mentioned this last week, Friday, that, what USCIS is doing. I wouldn't say this is majority of the cases, but what they're doing is basically they're separating EADs from advanced parole. For those of you who don't know what advanced parole means, it just means a travel permit, just so that they can process EADs quicker. But typically, most EADs that are filed with advanced parole requests will have, a combination card, and so they will come at the same time. Okay, let me see on this here. Mustafa says, how are you asking how long it can take to get VAWA approved? Okay, most VAWA cases take 2 years to 2.5 years. That is the norm and that is the average. So when I say that is the norm and that is the average, I am not exaggerating, for certain. I would say maybe 85% of people will be in that window. So that's a large percentage. Now, the rest of the 15% could be before or after, depending on what's going on with their case. Sometimes you might see some people earlier, but, and I've told you guys, and I've been candid about it before, in my own, and I do a lot of VAWA cases, at the firm. In my own experience, all the people who have had their cases processed earlier, I can pinpoint to exactly why the cases were processed earlier. Usually there was an issue with USCIS and something that they did, and I had to basically write in big fat letters, supervisor review, do not review this case if you're not a supervisor. So, I can pinpoint to that, but most people will fall under that window. I mean, you see some people around 18 months, and before the pre-pandemic times, it used to be 18 months to 24 months. So let's see what we're seeing this year, whether we're seeing more 18 months. But that is the window. And then, of course, there are going to be people that it comes after that where they need more investigation. The people that we see where it takes longer than that time is usually people that they're trying to determine if their marriage is legitimate or if their previous marriage, divorce is legitimate. Those are the ones that we see that are usually much more delayed. So, yeah. Otherwise, in that window, if all the information they have, they can make a decision. In that window, you'll get that request for additional evidence where they're asking you, okay, we can't make a decision with what we have, give us more stuff, And, like I've told you guys, a request for evidence is not a death sentence. It doesn't mean that your case is going to be denied, but it's important that you address and answer everything that USCIS is saying that they need, because they're going to take your response as your response. So if you don't give them everything that they've asked for, an explanation for that, they're going to make a decision based on what you've given them, okay? So Novelette says, what if you're filing for VAWA and have a 16-year-old child, if approved? Does he automatically get a green card too? He's in Jamaica, he visits from time to time. Okay, this is a very, very, very good question. And hopefully I can do some clarification for you guys. So, USCIS makes this a bit confusing by listing all children under 21 who are not US citizens in prima facie determination letters. If you have a child that is under 21 that was listed in your prima facie determination letter, for example, prima facie, which is what is given in VAWA, but they don't live in this country and you never put it in, like an IA-24 or anything like that for them, those children do not automatically get a green card. They don't automatically get a green card. This is how it works. You here, when you do your adjustment of your VAWA application, let's say you do your adjustment of status, right, here in the United States. You put in your application, the first thing that happens is your VAWA is approved first before you're scheduled for a green card interview to approve you for your VAWA. When your VAWA is approved, that first step, the people that it's going to list as people who have been approved are 1, you, and then 2, all children that are non-US citizens or green card holders that, were in your prima facie. So as long as you're under 21. And so those people can now use that approval. That's the VAWA approval, not the green card approval, the VAWA approval, and now apply for consular processing. But in order for them to apply for consular processing, they still have to do an IA-24, which is basically what says take action and an approved petition. Essentially, that's like in layman's terms. Some people, you can pay the additional extra fee when you're doing your VAWA case and put it in that additional application so that when you get approved, it will then send it to the National Visa Center. And once it's sent to the National Visa Center, you now have to do the application for your child's consular processing. So the answer is no, it's not automatic. There are still steps for that person to go. It's just which route do you want. Now, if you have your child, let's say this 16-year-old child is here in the United States, it is very different. If the child is here in the United States, then you can apply for adjustment of status simultaneously with your own case. If let's say you applied for your own case and then you'd like, okay, you know what, I'm going to apply for my child because my child is here already or whatever it is, my child has been here, you can apply for your child and attach it to your case while the child is here. Again, that's what makes it different from if you're applying outside the Yes, let me take some more IG questions. Oh my gosh, I can't take any more questions. I just realized, oh wait, I actually have 10 more minutes. So let's see what I can grab because I have so many questions on Instagram. Let me find a good one. Okay, I've answered this one. Raviv says, I came to the US in an R1 visa organization and I'm not paid salary and forcefully booked my home ticket. Yeah, definitely call us. Let's screen you. You might qualify for a T visa. So call the number 479956567. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Hello, I just had a baby with my baby father, and I'm considering filing with him in the future. And I know you have a supplemental case. I would love, what did you write here? Let's see. I would love for you to assist us with our case. How long do you have to work in order to file? I guess the first thing first is you need to be married. So for you, Ms. Cranberry, you guys should get married. Once you're married, of course, and we'd love to help you. There's no requirement once you're married of how long, before you can start the process, okay? Kobe says, can I file for VAWA while my temporary marriage green card is still processing? So when you say that, do you mean that you have a 2-year green card already and you're filing for removal of conditions? If you are, you can file for removal of conditions based on abuse and cruelty. It's not going to be VAWA, but it's going to be a removal of conditions based on abuse and cruelty. Similar, but some rules are different, okay? There are some RFEs for alleged misrepresentation. What should the person do? Without reading the RFE, I wouldn't be able to tell the person what they need to do. If that is you, definitely call the office and let's see what your RFE says and what your options are. Okay. Kimlin says, good morning, Aisha. Quick question. So I got married and we're ready to file. My USCIS form for my husband's income tax isn't ready. Can we file without that? So no, you cannot. When you are filing with your spouse has to submit his income tax or prove why he's not required to submit an income tax because they need to determine that he's eligible to sponsor you. And if he's not eligible to sponsor you, then, they now move on to the joint sponsor. So you need those taxes, okay? So Abby says, abandoned children of I'm assuming you're saying US citizen. Abandoned children of a US citizen, can a child file for VAWA? Yeah. Well, it depends on how old the children are. So, again, a lot of all those things, you have to be under 21. So if they're under 21, for sure, they can. And there's also SIJS options as well, but similarly, all those things have to do with age, okay? Okay, let me see what else I can take. What other good question? So Gabby says, the officer who issues you a prima facie, will that be the same officer assigned to your case? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know that, the same officer will be assigned to your case because typically prima facies are determined when you submit the stuff into the, I don't, because I don't even, sometimes it's hard to say that everyone that works at USCIS is an immigration officer, but a lot of times there are certain people who work at USCIS that are trained to go through an application on the offset and check off all the prongs. If it meets all the prongs, then you get the prima facie, and after that, it moves on to review, that's a fine-tooth comb review by an officer. So that officer now goes to the fine-tooth comb and sends you a request for evidence if they need one. If they don't need one, then they can approve you, or they send you a notice of intent to deny if they're denying for another reason. Once that is approved, it then moves over to your field office, and then in your field office, that's a completely different officer that is now reviewing your 485. When you have a valid case and your valid case has been approved, what ends up being processed for your 485 interview is just your 485. They're not technically supposed to be asking you any questions about your VAWA case and your abuse. And because your case has been approved, which is basically saying that it's established that you have a good faith marriage, that you were abused, and that you're a person of good moral character. So the 485 is essentially just checking for, anything else that might have changed. Okay? Okay, let's see what else. Everblessed says, how do you get a social security number after getting a combination card? Well, you get a social security number if when you filed for your employment authorization, you checked off the button that you wanted a social security card issued to you. Social security cards do not come on the same day for most people as your EAD because it's coming from a different office, not the same office. It's coming from the Social Security office in Washington, D.C. So sometimes it could take a couple of weeks. If you didn't check that box, you can just go to any Social Security Administration with your stuff, and then they will issue you a new one, okay? Q baby, you're asking a question about asylum. So sorry, I'm not gonna answer just because I don't do asylum cases, so I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. Ferno says, what's next after receiving receipt for valid case petitions? Once you get a receipt for your valid case, the next thing is, two things could happen. Sometimes one comes before the other. You might get a biometrics request first, or you can get your prima facie determination letter first. Your prima facie determination letter is basically to say that you've met the bare minimum standards to be classified as a VAWA victim. This is not a right. So what I mean when I say it's not a right, they have to feel that you're eligible to give it to you. So it's not like getting a receipt. Getting a receipt is a right, but getting a prima facie is not a right. So that's what comes next. Once you have that, if you filed an adjustment of status and work permit, what comes next is your work permit and your travel permit. And then after that is an approval or a request for additional evidence, okay? Chris is asking, okay, I already answered this question about how long that takes to be approved. I'm gonna save this video. So if you catch, I think it was probably in 15 minutes in that I talked about that. So you can see that. My sister had a green card, but it expired and she was back home when it expired. How can she fix the problem? When you say back home, I assume you're talking about outside the U.S. Well, how long has she been outside the U.S.? She needs to go to the U.S. embassy, in her home country. She needs to go to the U.S. embassy and figure out what her options are. Typically, what can happen sometimes is that they will actually, and I'm not telling you to do this, but sometimes, this has happened with some of my clients. Actually, this happened to my late grandmother as well, where she entered into the country with her expired green card. And, they just stamped her with an added stamp. So for safety, I would say the first thing you should do is go to her local embassy and find out. And this is assuming she has not abandoned her green card, because those are two different things. If she stayed out of the country for more than a year, she's abandoned her green card and she's essentially starting again. What could happen is she could enter into the country, and at the airport, she'll be stopped probably for secondary review. And at that time, they'll probably make her sign a form basically saying that she's voluntarily abandoned that in exchange for her signing that she's voluntarily abandoned her green card, we'll give her a B1, B2 to enter back into the country, and then, she can file adjustment of status again. So there are just so many variables without knowing what it is. All right, guys, I do have to jump off. I will be on live oh no, I won't be on live this Friday. I will be in Washington, D.C. But I'll be back on live on Tuesdays to save your questions, or DM us your questions, and I'll try to do like a printout of some of the questions to talk live. next Tuesday. Thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you guys soon.